Hello, welcome to another edition of Issues and Analysis series by CSTV. I'm Preeti, welcoming you on this topic. Will America be great again? America has virtually ruled the world since World War II. Although this monopoly is short compared with 800 years of absolute monopoly by India, exercised from 400 BC to 1200 BC. Still, being in that generation, USA's domination meant a lot for us in the present era. China's emergence briefly thwarted US domination, but it remains to be seen whether China will be an equally soft and hard power like that of US. How US will ensure its domination post-COVID remains to be seen. To discuss this issue on unipolar world and related aspects, today we have two eminent people on our panel. So I welcome and it's a pleasure to introduce Ambassador Yogesh Gupta. He has been India's ambassador to Denmark and secretary in Ministry of External Affairs. He has held senior positions in India, missions in Pakistan, USA, Italy, and other countries. He is now researching and writing on USA, China, and related issues in national dailies and appears on TV programs on these subjects in India. Also, we have with us Mr. K. Siddhartha, who is an earth scientist and a mentor to 1553 IAS and an author of 43 books on space in international relations, history, environment, geology, economy, and heritage. Is a rare breed of polymath that has made him a strategic thinker and advisor, which he is now. I welcome both of you on our channel today to share your views on this topic.
So, do you think that the world is a better place when it has been a unipolar world, or was it a better place when it was a unipolar world dominated by the United States?
Well, I think first of all, we have to recognize that the unipolar movement was only for a brief period. Earlier, it was multipolar, and after the unipolar movement passed away, it again became multipolar. In the unipolar movement, of course, some people could take comfort from the fact that they felt a better sense of security because the US was the only superpower, and they felt that the values that the US espoused generally were sort of appreciated. And but again, there were sort of interventions, US military interventions, let's say in Iraq, which were very unpopular. So I would say on the whole that it's better to have a multipolar world because that would help us avoid the excesses of one country. Once there are checks and balances. And in any case, I think we have far moved now from that stage of unipolar world because the center of center of the global economy is shifting considerably from the west to the east. So in any case, that unipolar world is now historic, and I don't see its emergence anytime soon. It's going to be more of multipolar world where, of course, there may be a situation where there are countries such as US and China which have disproportionately higher strength as compared to other regional or middle powers, let's say Japan or India or Australia and so on. So that inequality or may be there, but it's going to be a multipolar world. And I think a multipolar world is overall better than a unipolar world.
So how do you see that is, we have United States, China is trying to emerge. It's only the emergence of China that has led to so much amount of a conflict. So we are moving towards multipolarity and it has not still evolved, and then there is so much amount of a conflict that is taking place here. So will it going to be a stable place in multipolarity?
Well, we are witnessing a phase in which the rise of China is sort of creating waves of disequilibrium, because the expectation that some of us had, including in the Western world, including the US, that the rise of China will be peaceful, or that China will settle down quietly and easily in the existing post World War order. Those expectations have been belied, and the rising China is now it's now reclaiming some of its disputed territories, which it says were historically part of China. And first of all, there are great doubts whether those territories were really part of China, and even if they were some centuries ago, it's very disturbed. It's very difficult to redraw the boundaries now, and it's very it's again very difficult to sort of concede those sorts of demands of China. So I think we are going to have these issues till the Chinese settle down in the existing world order, or otherwise we will have a rising clashes between the existing superpower and the aspiring one, and also other countries whose territories China is claiming, or where China is launched some sort of aggressive practices, such as India or Philippines or Vietnam, Japan, and so on. So China has to really think and consider whether what it is doing is correct, and whether it will really have peace, because China also needs peace. If we don't have global and regional peace, that will disturb China's future development as well.
So, there had been some quarters who have been talking about a multipolar world, but then a multipolarity that is not only dominated by military, a multipolarity that means there will be some states with economic power, some states with military power, some with soft power. So dehyphenating a good number of powers and reclassification of it. Do you refer to such type of a multipolarity, or is it that you are referring to an absolute polarity on the basis of concentration of economic power, military power, as well as a soft power, all in the hands of one or maybe two or three countries only?
Well, there are different facets of power. Some people say that the basic power is the economic power, because economic power can be transformed into other powers. But then there are other aspects of power, for instance, the military power. Look at the example of Russia, which has huge military power, but it has a very small economy. Take the example of Japan, which has a huge economic power, but again, its military is comparatively not as developed or as modern. So power is exercised, can be exhibited in very different ways, and these days, the concept is that you take into account the comprehensive national power, which includes your economic power, which includes your military power, which includes your soft power, and so on. So, and also your internal cohesion and so on. China, for instance, is internally very weak and rigid. A lot of Chinese have to spend a lot of money, for instance, on suppressing people's voices and suppressing, popular viewpoints, particularly of minorities. Some say that they are spending more on internal repression, on keeping their people quiet, than even on their external defense. So military power, the national power can be exhibited in different ways, as I said.
Well, sir, we do understand that his military power is going to be prime, of course, but is backed by economic power, and that will go on to allow the countries to subjugate it. How do you go on to see India's intent of spreading itself in Africa and spreading itself out in the form of a soft power? Just some time back recently, the foreign minister of India said that is Africa is going to be playing a pivotal role in the new multipolarity that will go on to evolve. How exactly is it that India will be placed, United States will be placed, and China will be placed vis-a-vis the emergence of Africa as one of these nodal centers for multipolarity?
Well, there are three, four facets. First of all, let's understand that Africa is huge. And in the African continent, a lot of development is taking place, and there is potential for a lot of more development. So people are going to have increased purchasing power. People are going to have increased consumer power. So in that sense, we are going to see big markets in Africa. Africa is very rich with the resources, natural resources, human resources, and so on. Now, there has been a fundamental difference in the attitude of India and China as regards Africa. In case of India, we have always we were involved from the earliest times in the struggle of the African people against decolonization, the apartheid, and so on, and then helping them in the reconstruction of their country. And our approach was always to consult the African people and ask them, what do you need? Where is it that we can come in and help? And we sort of picked up areas, for instance, the human infrastructure. We trained a lot of African students in our universities in India. We sent a lot of teachers to Africa. We invited a lot of African experts to be trained in different Indian institutions. Then we took up a lot of projects in Africa. We never thought in terms of exploiting the African natural resources by sending our people there and by exclusively sort of mining those minerals like the Chinese are doing. And we always were very conscious of the ability of the Africans to repay. And that has been one major problem with China, because China has undertaken projects in many African countries like Zambia, Kenya, and so on, where those projects, they have created huge economic liabilities, and those countries are unable to pay. And also, some of the other problems in the Chinese projects are that they are not based on, they don't take into account the requirements of the locals. They are not based on consultations with the local communities. So when the project is complete, the local people don't feel the ownership, or the last mile connectivity is lacking. So the project is not able to generate the kind of returns which are required to repay the loans. But India has always been very cognizant of this, and our approach has been completely different. So I think in the short term, maybe some countries might feel that China is in a better position to give them a lot of money, a lot of credit, and so on. But ultimately, I think our model of economic and technical assistance to Africa is much more human-friendly, much more friendlier to African countries. It doesn't create huge debt, and it is helpful to them in the long term.
Thank you, sir. This has been known, but post-COVID situation has changed a lot of things in the whole of the world, particularly with respect to China's ambition, China's emergence as a prime global power of sorts. How do you go to see China's rise and then the relative fall that has been associated with the COVID situation now?
Well, China is in a slightly better position because it has been able to control the COVID a little faster than the other countries. Now, there are different theories why China has been able to do. Some people, for instance, suspect that the virus that came from China was done in laboratories, where the Chinese sort of devised ways in which it would affect others and not affect their own self. So there are different theories, but at the end of the day, these advantages are short term, and whatever advantage China sort of earned or got by controlling the COVID quickly, it is dissipating those advantages by threatening other countries, by taking over territories like Hong Kong, and now pressurizing India, Taiwan, Philippines, Vietnam, and Japan. And also, China's policies in the long term, particularly on the economic and trade side, are unfair policies. China is shutting off foreign companies from their market. It is not allowing a free competition, which it had promised to do after it joined the WTO. And the other thing is that China is also not permitting, you know, uh, not respecting the intellectual property that other countries are sharing with China. In case of India, for instance, we have found it very difficult to enter the Chinese market because it takes sometimes as much as 3 years to register a medicine to be sold in China. Our IT companies are finding it very difficult to enter the Chinese market. China is extensively using non-tariff barriers to prevent other companies. So China's rise is based on unfair competition. It has provided its companies with credit at nearly 0% interest rates, whereas our companies have to they have to get funds from the market. They have to pay 12%, 13% interest. And whereas Chinese companies are sort of getting credits at very low rate, 0 to 1 or 2%, from their banks. Everything in China is state controlled. So China's competition is unfair, and I hope that this new president, which takes office in the US, ultimately sort of leads efforts for reform of the multilateral institutions, in which these unfair trade practices are checked. Otherwise, a lot of countries are getting hurt by this unfair competition that China has started.
So despite all that, sir, you see China's global dominance as inevitable?
No, I don't think China's global dominance is inevitable. I would say that President Trump took some measures to push back China. For instance, he imposed some tariffs on Chinese exports. He put some sanctions on supply of high technological items like microchips and so on to China. But more importantly is that the biggest power of the United States is its allies, and unfortunately President Trump did not make use of those allies in the way that he should have. So I would suggest that the new president in the US should take this comprehensive approach in which it uses its allies, in which it uses the multilateral institutions like the WTO to ensure that China does not use this unfair trade policies. And also it is able to take concrete measures to ensure that there is a pushback to China's aggressive policies, there is a pushback against China's unfair practices. So if all these things are done collectively by US, its allies, its friends, then certainly I think China's unfair and aggressive policies and practices can be checked. And to that extent, I think China's unfair rise can be prevented.
And what if United States goes on to recognize Taiwan for asserting its unipolarity, sir? Will it go on to lead to a unipolar situation, and will that make America great again?
I think that will be an extreme step. That will be extremely provocative because the Chinese President Xi Jinping, he is very sensitive about Taiwan, and I think if that sort of a step is taken, that he will be sort of cornered and forced to take some measures, because he cannot show himself domestically as weak. And so I really hope and I think that US may not take that step, may not really go that far. I think the kind of ambiguity that the Americans have maintained in regard to Taiwan, that serves the interest of Taiwan as well as countries in the region. United States has quietly upgraded its relationship with Taiwan, as we have seen in recent weeks, through the visits of its health secretary and then visits of its senior officials from the on the political side, and through the provision of new weaponry, advanced equipment, and so on. That is all fine. That is sending the right signal. But I think it will not go as far as to recognize Taiwan as an independent country. I think that will be too provocative, may lead to a war.
Sir, but assuming that you happen to be the Secretary of State of United States, how do you think that is you can go on to make America great again, and how is it that United States can go to meet the challenges of rising China, and how is it that it can go to position itself to make itself better and to make itself big once again? That means there are two questions. One of them is how is it that it can go to meet the challenges of rising China? That's one. It doesn't go to see a threatened position from India because it sees India as a strategic partner. All in all, they have said it so. So the only threat goes on to remain with China. So how is it that it can go to meet the challenges of this rising China, asserting China, an arrogant China, and a China that does not respect anything at all in the whole of the world. It doesn't respect the world community, as we have talked about. How it can be done, sir?
Yes, there are two, three aspects. First of all, we have to domestically renew and strengthen our respective economies, including America. In the recent years, the American investments in technology, for instance, high technologies, they have fallen. While China has been investing heavily in artificial intelligence, in 5G, in quantum computing, in new materials, in new energy platforms, other countries have lagged behind. So we have to undertake the economic renewal, technological renewal of our country. So that is one aspect. We have to ensure that in the economic and technological competition, we are keeping pace. We are ahead of China, and China is not allowed to get the feeling that they are ahead and they are succeeding, or they are attaining supremacy. So that is one aspect. Our domestic reconstruction, our domestic development. Second aspect, I think the US president, the future US president, should call a meeting of all allies and friends and then discuss that, look, China is reaping unfair advantages through its unfair policies. And we must work together both through WTO as well as multilaterally with China, or plurilaterally with China, telling China that, look, we will either impose sanctions on you or we will take other measures unless you stop your unfair trade policies. That is one set. The second is that China is trying to get technologies, sensitive technologies from the West. Today, while US has imposed restrictions on export of sensitive technologies, other countries such as Europe, or for instance, South Korea or Taiwan, China is easily able to get such technologies from these countries. So US is to bring together all these countries together and adopt common standards, adopt common procedures that, look, we will not allow exports of these sensitive technologies to China unless China eliminates this unfair competition. And thirdly, I think US has to ensure that its presence in this region is sufficiently bolstered and right signals are sent to China to convey that, look, if you will threaten smaller countries, if you will indulge in aggressive behavior, then there will be a pushback. And US should be able to bring together countries in the region, in Asia, in East Asia, in South Asia, and as well as countries in Europe who also share similar views and values.
So, as someone, as a strategic thinkers go on to say, there is India is the key to make America great again. A short comment on you to end this conversation, sir. Is it so? You realize it so?
Can't countries become great by their own efforts? One country can't make other country great. We can of course assist, we can cooperate, we can help each other, we can be strategic partners. But at the end of the day, greatness is achieved by your own efforts. Nobody else can make you great.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you, sir. It was a very enriching discussion, and we hope to see you more on such topics. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Such discussions, like, share, and subscribe our channel, and also hit the bell button for our upcoming videos.